Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So we have an unfortunate story of a coach over in Oregon who has been fired for simply voicing concerns about male athletes competing in women's track and field. Now we know Oregon is highly problematic when it comes to schools implementing these policies that allow boys into girls' locker rooms, that allow boys into girls' sports. In particular, track and field, we've seen some recent examples. There was even the story about two coaches quitting, a husband and wife who decided to walk away from coaching after coaching for years because they didn't like what they saw. He explained that not only is it wrong to have males in girls' locker rooms, in girls' sports, but he said they're blatantly taking advantage of it, that these boys know that they can identify as a girl for 1 year and come back in the fall and be a boy again.
Hi, Dave Brown from Stand Tall. Last night, my wife and I resigned our head coaching positions for varsity and JV girls tennis at our high school we're at. For the last 25 years, I've coached varsity basketball, varsity tennis, coached in over 1,090 games, won 667 and lost 423. Have had a lot of success, but I finally reached the point where I had to resign last night because of boys playing girls tennis. And the reason we did is we're just not going to support boys playing girls sports. This is wrong on every level. These are not girls, they're boys saying they're a girl. They're playing a false sport, come back and play a girls sport and go back to playing a boys sport. All I have to do is change the paperwork at the district office. I'm not going to support it. I'm never going to lie to a kid. I'm going to support my wife who was a pioneer in Title IX. And every other girl that's come along now expects every adult to do the right thing and protect them. We're not protecting girls now. K through 12 and women's sports. We're allowing men or boys to play in these sports. It's dangerous, it's wrong. We have boys in the locker rooms watching girls go through their get ready for practice or a match or a game. How wrong is that for a girl to have to endure something like that? What we would have called 5 or 6 years ago somebody going to jail is now acceptable in high schools and middle schools. This is absolutely wrong when a girl has to fear this, but she can't say anything. And if you're in a public school, at least in Oregon, you can't say anything or you will be ostracized, you will be put down, you will be shamed, and you just don't have a voice. People can't stand up and say anything, but I will. I'm going to say this is wrong on every level. You should contact every school board member that you have in your area and say there's no way we're doing this. Contact administrators, but say it and say it strong.
He said there were some boys who were clearly taking advantage simply to gain access to girls in their locker rooms, looking at girls changing, undressing, and all of that. And he could not continue coaching in those conditions because he didn't want to co-sign what was going on. So we have another coach who simply wrote some letters explaining why it's not a good idea to allow boys into women's sports. And these coaches see everything. They're right there. They know exactly what's going on, more than the people who sit on the board and are out of touch with reality. So he wrote letters, probably just to inform them about what's going on in the schools, probably just to tell them what he sees. And I'm sure he probably saw similar situations where boys were blatantly taking advantage, and it puts the girls in a lose-lose situation, both in the locker room and out on the track. No matter how hard they work, they simply can't compete with male athletes because we are built differently. So seeing how unfair it is, seeing how it affects the girls and their competitions, of course, a good integral coach would want to speak out and say, enough of this. Now, because of what happened to him, it wouldn't surprise me if many other coaches thought the same, but are scared to speak out. Because this coach has now been fired. And this is a theme I'm seeing. You can't even voice your concerns. You can't even ask questions when it comes to these policies. That automatically comes across as an attack to them for some reason. And I don't see how it's justifiable to fire somebody for simply speaking out and voicing concerns.
We're following following a developing story out of Lake Oswego. The head track and field coach at Lake Oswego High School says he lost his job because he wrote letters to state officials calling its policy on transgender athletes flawed. Coach John Parks says he wrote those letters challenging the law that protects high school athletes who want to compete against the gender that aligns with their gender identity. On Wednesday, Coach Parks says the district terminated his contract because of those letters. K2's Barry Mangold was at tonight's school board meeting at Lake Oswego, where parents and athletes showed up for the coach. Barry?
Yeah, Deb, Coach John Parks says that he is a strong supporter of transgender athletes and says the current policy and state law and of the Oregon Student Activities Association sets those athletes up for controversy.
I'm going to fight now because I got wronged. I went in this thing and I was fighting for girls. I'm fighting for female sports, and I'm fighting that it be fair for everybody.
At the state track and field championships last month, John Parks says he witnessed the crowd boo a transgender athlete after they won a girls' event. At the time, Parks was the coach at Lake Oswego High School and had written letters to the OSAA and the state senator advocating for something else. Are you hoping to have transgender athletes excluded in any way from high school athletic competition?
No, I want it transformed. Sorry to use the pun there, but I want it transformed into a situation where they have a separate division, may it be, we call it open, or allow them to compete as junior varsity athletes. But when you come to championship events, these things involve scholarships, they involve things that they have an unfair advantage in at the highest level when it comes to physical things. We're not talking about political. This is not a political issue to me. It never has been.
Those letters, he says, led to his termination. On Wednesday, Parks says the district ended his contract because of what he wrote, despite the fact that he says administrators knew what he was doing before he sent those letters.
I'm being prevented from speaking by writing a letter and not getting any guidance on this ahead of time, and being told that the letter was okay. It just makes no sense.
The district declining to comment on his termination, saying they do not discuss personnel matters. The athletic director also did not respond to a message on Monday. A group of roughly a dozen parents and athletes showed up to Monday's board meeting to show support for Coach Parks.
I think that John wants the best for everybody, wants the best for the transgender female athletes and also the best for the rest of the female athletes. And I don't think this was anything to do against transgender people. This was to protect both parties involved.
It's about making sure we have fair and safe opportunities for all of our athletes to compete, and that's all that he's asked for.
And right now, Coach Parks says that he is in the process of appealing the termination of his contract.
Absolutely shocking. Clearly, this is a coach who simply wants the best for all parties involved. You know why it's not in the best interest of the transgender students? It's because you're lying to them. You're telling them that it's perfectly fair for them to compete with girls when they are male. You're lying to them, and you're setting them up to have what they've acquired being taken away from them in the future. When all of this comes to a head and people come to their senses, or more and more people speak out and say no and refuse to, enter their daughters into these competitions, when the girls walk away and the transgender student is on the track alone, that's not in that student's best interest to be put in that position. There's booing, there's people protesting, which is perfectly fine, by the way, in my opinion. But it's not putting the transgender student in the best position. And as a school board, why on earth would you not want to hear from coaches? Why would you not want feedback? Because these policies, some of them claim, they've been around for 10 years or whatever. But the reality is, this started happening in recent years, especially in Oregon and Washington State. We're seeing more and more of it occurring now. So it's unprecedented. So in all good conscience, why would you not want feedback from the very people who are involved in implementing these policies, or at least witnessing the results of these policies? Why would you not want feedback from the girls? That tells me that you don't care about their best interests. All you care about is pushing an agenda. And that seems to be more important than what is in the best interest of female athletes. It's absolutely disgusting, and it is reckless. This is negligence, in my opinion, because they're literally going to push this until something catastrophic happens. I mean, it is catastrophic, in my opinion, for a girl to lose a championship to a male athlete. That's bad enough. It's catastrophic for a girl to be in a position where there are boys in her locker room. And all of that still doesn't get the school boards to step back and think, okay, is this a good policy? The fact that you will fire somebody for simply offering feedback, somebody who is clearly supported by parents and students, somebody who's not out here saying anything derogatory about, transgender students or anything like that, who's come respectfully just to let you have some insight into what is really going on. Clearly, they don't care. They don't want to know what's going on. They don't want to know how their policy is actually affecting people. And like Coach Park said, this is at a level where there are other things at stake here, such as scholarships. Records are at stake here. We're going to get to the point where the records can't be salvaged anymore. The longer this is allowed to continue, the harder it's going to be to restore women's sports, to restore girls' sports to where it should be. And the school boards that are allowing this, they are the ones responsible for destroying women's sports. They are the ones responsible for putting young girls in a dangerous situation in their locker rooms that should be safe spaces. They are the ones responsible for taking away privacy from these young girls. It's all going to be on their heads. Everything is asked backwards. How is that even legal? Why must everyone bow down to the woke mob? Oregon hates women. Why would any woman want to raise a child in a state that allows men to compete in women's sports and use women's bathrooms? Yep, Oregon's very beautiful. I used to live there. I lived there for 2 years. I could not imagine living there now. Absolutely not. Kudos to Coach Parks. We need more of him. I hope he sues the school district for everything they have. And a lot of the comments are saying he should sue. All of this nonsense would immediately stop if every female athlete stopped competing against males. It's incredible when someone who stands for actual biological women's rights gets fired for doing the right thing and defending their category of sports. The part of supposed feminism just sits by and lets it happen. This needs to stop. So Coach Parks is appealing this ridiculous decision, and I wish him all the best. I understand those who walk away and say, I have to take a stand. But he's there in the thick of it, and he's writing letters. He's giving them the feedback that you would think they would want. If you wanted the best outcome for everybody, you would take feedback and you would make adjustments to ensure that all parties involved are given the best possible outcome. But that's not what they want. They're prioritizing certain groups over others. And I believe they are discriminating against girls. They seem to have no problem doing that. They are discriminating against people who speak out, like Coach Parks. Unless the letter contained threats or anything like that, that is not a good reason to fire somebody. Because everybody should be allowed to voice their concerns without risk of losing their jobs. In any other situation, making suggestions would be welcomed. But when it comes to gender ideology, offering feedback is perceived as a threat. That's how irrational and unreasonable this whole ideology is. It can't be questioned. And I'm telling you now, it is not going to end well. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.